Okay, cool. So, Dr. Bluestein, we are super excited to have you today. This is our second time actually having Dr. Bluestein here throughout the school year. So I'm very excited to have her on because she's one of my favorite professors. So I'm a little biased about that. But Dr. Bluestein is going to be talking to us about resume and cover letters, and then how to kind of like land an internship as well. Especially during the pandemic, because I know that it's a little bit harder. So do you kind of want to talk about your background and then kind of like go ahead and talk about everything else?
Sure. Real quick about me, I have been full-time at CSUN since 2011, so almost 10 years. It's hard to believe it. I am a 3-time CSUN grad, so I do bleed red and black. My bachelor's, master's, and doctorate, all 3 of those I earned at CSUN. After my bachelor, well, during getting my bachelor's degree, I had 2 internships. One at a newspaper in Simi Valley in the summer, and then the next semester in the fall at a newspaper in downtown LA, the Herald Examiner. Neither one of those newspapers are in existence today, but the summer internship ended up turning into my first full-time job. So I was employed full-time at a newspaper in my very last semester of CSUN. And thank goodness I only had 3 classes, including 498. So otherwise I never could have done it. So I'm a big believer in internships. I didn't even have to apply for that full-time job. They called me when they had an opening. And of course I took it. And then I went on to work for the Daily News and then the LA Times for 14 years at the LA Times, and then got laid off during a round of layoffs in 2004, and then went into teaching. So I earned my master's degree while teaching at Pierce College. Then I taught at Moorpark, then at CSUN, and I'm here to stay until I retire. So I'm really happy to talk to you about internships because it's so very, very important. We don't require, we're going to start with a resume in just a minute, but as far as internships, we don't require you to get an internship before you graduate. Now there's pros and cons about that. And I can see both sides of it. The pros are it will force some of our students to actually get an internship. And the cons are that sometimes there's students in our program that they just really don't want to go into the business, and to force them to do an internship is not really fair to them or the employers. So we don't offer, we don't force you to do an internship, but it is so very, very important because for most jobs, most professional jobs these days, a bachelor's degree is the minimum qualification. So if everybody's got a bachelor's degree who you will be in contention with, then how do you set yourself apart? And it's through internships. By the way, you can put it in the chat. Anybody want to guess the percentage of our students who completed one internship? And this was done, a study that Professor Zhang and I did over 3 different semesters a few years ago. And because we were curious, how many students actually in our program, and that includes, of course, broadcast, PR, everybody does internships. Okay, so what we found was that, and our winner would be Sophia, that 30% exactly. So 30%, we surveyed 112 students over 3 semesters. We didn't look at every single person, but every student who was in 498. So all of our graduating seniors. And anyone want to take a guess at how many students did 2 internships? Now, this was whether or not they were enrolled in my class or not. So how many did 2 internships? Okay, yeah, so the numbers dropped quite a bit. It's actually better than I would have expected, 22%. And my theory on that is once you get one internship, it is so much easier to get the second one. And if you have time, if you start early enough and you've got time to do multiple internships, then that explains why 30% did one, but then 22 did a second, and 11% did a whopping 3 or more internships. 11%. The sad number, though, is that 36% of our students did not do one internship. So basically, a third of our students, this was just a few years ago, 2017 and 2018, over those 3 semesters, basically a third of them did not do an internship. So that's really sad. It's going to put them at a huge disadvantage. And one of the realistic reasons why you need to do internships before you graduate is that many employers reserve internships for students who are still working on their degree. So once your degree is done, once it is conferred, you're done. You're done with your BA. Yeah, you can enroll in an internship class at Pierce College, but you're not really working on your degree anymore. You're done with it. Jesse, do you have a question?
Yes, this is actually something that's been making me a little bit nervous because I work 40 hours a week and, I'm trying to finish all the classes. Are there, obviously I haven't looked as much as I'm going to look like within the next coming months, but are there internships that can actually fit my schedule, or will I actually have to take a look at, like my job pattern right now and maybe like actually quit at some time?
Good question. Well, there's good and bad about the pandemic in terms of internships. So the bad is that, especially for broadcasts, there are fewer internships. The students who were in my 494 class a year ago, last spring, when everything fell apart in mid-March, those broadcast students were, for the most part, dismissed from their internship because it's hard to do a remote internship if you are doing a broadcast internship, or at least initially they thought, just like, we got to get people out of the studio who don't need to be here for sure. So buy interns, and then, nope, we're not going to offer summer internships. Some of them offered fall. And then there's more that are offering them this spring because they figured out how to do them remotely.
Yeah, that's what ABC7 did. The only reason I was an intern during fall was because I was supposed to be there for spring, and they completely cut off all the interns and everything. And so then they were like, well, do you want to come back? And I was like, sure, but they didn't do any interviews for anything about anything for any of the interns at all. And still, they haven't had any new interns that they've been doing until summer. So they're doing actual interviews now, which I found was very interesting.
Yeah, that is. And so the good thing is, and I'll get to Beatrice in one second, is that these remote internships have opened up the whole country and maybe even beyond for you. So instead of you being stuck on the 405 or the 101 and needing transportation or having to pay for an Uber to get to your internship, now you can do a remote internship, but that's not going to last for too much longer, is my sense. They're going to want people coming into the studios. And so be aware that for some of you, you may need to be getting COVID tested every couple of weeks, which is not a pleasant thing. There's a student this semester who's doing an internship, a broadcast internship at a studio, and she's having to get tested every 2 weeks. But take advantage of the remote internships. This may be the last summer that they are readily available. So you could be doing a remote internship for some TV or radio station anywhere in the country. Just be aware about time differences. So if you're a night owl and you're applying for an East Coast morning radio show, you may have to be getting up at 2 in the morning or staying up. So keep that in mind, but when you're applying. But the remote internships, it's amazing how, so everything kind of settled down. It just came to a dead stop, and then it's starting to creep up. So right now there's a mix between remote and in person, especially for broadcast. Beatrice, your question?
Yeah, so you're saying that it's good to have like an internship while you're studying. And I think international students only can get internships after they graduate, because I think they need to work on campus. Do you think it's like really hard to find an internship and then a job?
You're right. That may very well be a lot more challenging for you to be able to get an internship because most of the radio and TV companies, they're, it's not like a small little company.
Mm-hmm.
They need to make sure they're in compliance with federal labor law. They don't want to get in any trouble. I don't know a whole lot about what you might need to do. So I would just check with the CSUN International Students office and see, unless you already know this information. But that is definitely a disadvantage for the international students.
Yeah, I don't know if it's like only full-time jobs that we can't have, or if it's also internships.
I'm not sure. So I don't want to say for sure, but look into it yourself, and we can kind of, have an email exchange about it. That would be good.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, because the question is, are you legally allowed to work in the US? The good news is that ever since a big lawsuit a few years ago, broadcast internships for TV tend to be paid. The radio ones tend to be unpaid. That's from what I've seen from students. So I don't know, maybe a radio one, if you're unpaid, might be easier to get. Let me go ahead. If there are any questions so far, because I want to start going through my PowerPoint to make sure I don't.
There were a couple questions in the chat.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So Bea did ask earlier. Do you want me to still ask the question, Bea?
Sorry.
You asked, is it bad to start an internship after?
Oh yeah, that's the same thing. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Just want to make sure. And then Jesse did ask, he's a PR major, and he was asking, have you found that it's very similar for PR jobs as well?
And you're talking about internships being remote?
Yeah, like have you found that it's like the same scenario where most are gonna probably go back to being in person, or because I'm hoping they just stay remote and I can just work from home all day.
Yeah, that would be awesome. For PR, that industry pivoted a lot better than everyone else.
Okay, cool.
So that's definitely in your favor. Many of the PR interns in the 494 class last spring kept I think most of them kept their internships. They just went to working remote, and then those companies this semester are, there might be 1 or 2 students who are supposed to be going into the office, but the rest of them are remote because you can do the work remotely. For broadcast, it's so much more difficult. It's just better for the interns to be right there in the studio helping out. But for PR, you can do a lot of the work
Yeah, just type it up and.
From home. Yeah. So it's, so that's good. I was assuming you were a broadcast major. And then, yeah, Sophia said that at ABC7, you have quite a few interns that live in different states. Yeah, so take advantage of this now. It's not going to last forever. And it will just depend on the employer, how long, the particular employer, how long it lasts. But take advantage of it. It's awesome. Because you're no longer relegated to having the having to go in person. Okay, good. Thanks, Jessie. Great. So let's see. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So here we go. So starting off with resumes, because this is you're trying to get an invitation to the interview. Because odds are they aren't just going to look at your resume and call you up and say, you know, hey, Giovanni, come and intern for us. You're going to have to be interviewed. So the resume is so very, very important. You need it to cut through the clutter and show how your experience is relevant to the company. So that particular company. So you may tweak your resume a little bit depending on where you are applying. A resume by no means is every single thing you have done in your whole life. It can't be. It'll be 5 pages and nobody's going to look at that. Or they're going to look at the first half of the page, the first half of page 1, and they're not going to get to the good stuff. So imagine a garden, beautiful garden with all these different flowers that are blooming, and there's all these weeds that are growing among the flowers. Those weeds detract from the beauty of and the impact of that beautiful garden. So get rid of stuff that is not relevant, that, you know, you might have thought it was such a major thing, but as you've gone on to do other things, you know, you can get rid of it. Yeah, I like to kind of have some visuals, but be 100% accurate. Don't inflate your accomplishments, because a half-truth is as deceptive as a lie. So if you were not the only creator of a video or a blog post, if there was actually more than one person working on it, don't say that you were the only person who worked on a particular project. Just say, yeah, you were a team member, that you weren't the only person doing that. Oh, oops, I lost something there. That's okay. So that was just a few things, but now we're going to talk about what to do before we talk about what not to do. So first of all, include community service. And this is based on research that I've done, just basically scouring the internet, reading different articles. So some of this you can take it or leave it. There's no exact right way to do a resume. It's a very personal thing, but there are things that you can do that are not that ideal. De-emphasize Greek, and I mean fraternity, sororities, religious or political work unless it's relevant to that job. If you're simply a member of a sorority or fraternity, but you hold no leadership position, I wouldn't put it on your resume, because unfortunately, Greek life is party life, and they don't want to hire a party animal for their intern or their full-time job. And religious and political work can also get you in trouble unless it is relevant to that particular job. It can just basically be a turnoff to that employer. So unless you hold a leadership position, president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, I would leave it off if you're only a member. Include any awards that you have received in college. The dean's list is considered 3.5 or better. Maybe you've been on and off the dean's list. So maybe you want to say dean's list 3 semesters, and that's fine. 3 or 2 consecutive semesters. If you've never been on the dean's list, it doesn't matter. Okay, we're not math and science. Your grades are really not that important to most employers. What you've done, what you've created, that's what they want to see. So print out your resume. Hopefully you have a printer, or you've got a relative or a friend who has one, because mistakes jump off the printed page a lot more than that. You know, you're looking at that printed page and mistakes are going to stand out a lot more. Read it out loud. Especially if you don't have a printer, read it out loud. Have someone else proofread it. It must be error free. I don't mean perfect. Okay, so you may consider your resume perfect. Your friend might consider her resume perfect, but as long as there's no errors, then it is fine. If you have one typo, and I wish I had $1 for every time, I wouldn't really be rich, but for every time one of our students has sent me their resume and the word journalism is misspelled. Yeah. Is that impressive? No, that's not impressive. And so what employers will do is any typos, reject. And that's a very objective way to get that list or that pile of resumes down. Nobody can accuse them of discrimination on whatever basis if they rejected you because you had a typo. Yeah, it's cutthroat. I've been on some hiring committees and it's fascinating to see it from the other end. It's really wild. And really you may get 100 people who apply for a job. Well, you can't go through all those people. You can't interview them all. So you're looking very nitpick things that will reject them. So that's so it's got to be error free. Email, whenever you send it, email or upload it, always as a PDF, never as a Word doc. It could be altered somehow. It could end up looking really funky, and that could be a problem. You're in college now, so forget high school. If you were the editor-in-chief of your newspaper or yearbook, perhaps, and you're a sophomore or junior, maybe you're going to have that on there. But if you were just a staff member of your yearbook or newspaper, forget it. It's that is your juvenile record and it has been expunged. So yeah, so definitely PDF, because a PDF just locks it in. It's almost like a photograph. So that's what you want to do. One page only. How much time, anybody want to guess, do you have to impress someone with your resume? And I mean a human being. There's, yeah, 30 seconds, 15, 10. Yeah, not very long. Definitely less than a minute. Absolutely less than a minute. So Juliana asked, would you include something like social media manager for a club you were in high school? Maybe if you don't really, for PR students, that might work if you're a sophomore or a junior and you're not in the PR classes yet, but then eventually it would drop out. So the one thing about that is it shows, hey, you know, you were interested in this stuff back in high school. That's cool. But as you get more recent and more substantial experience, some of that stuff will drop away. Update your resume. Oops, here we go. Every 3 to 6 months. Just always. It's a live, living document. You don't want to forget anything of scholarship you might have won. By the way, if you do win a scholarship, you don't have to put the amount of money, but that you won that scholarship and when you won it. So what not to do? I have seen it said that don't include your GPA unless it's a 3.8 or better. That's not very many of our students because as a full-time faculty member, there was a a list every spring, and we look at the top students, and there aren't very many who are in that category. But again, don't worry about it. But so if you have a 3.2, that's wonderful, but don't include it. You don't want to call attention to something that isn't really relevant or outstanding. And, you know, don't put photos that are compromising, negative comments on social media. Nobody wants to work with a whiner. Even if you have really strong feelings about things, if you're looking for an internship or a job, I really, really suggest is dialing it back for a while, because you would hate to be disqualified for a job or an internship because somebody didn't like something that you had on social media. Your CSUN email account, it's going to go goodbye at some point after you graduate. So what you want now is a personal email account, but you don't want an unprofessional name, you know, cute little fuzzy bunnies, you know, at Gmail. That's not too, you know, or, you know, football addict at gmail.com. So hopefully you all have just a very normal, your name, all that, first and last name. I would not include any numbers. I don't think it's important in an email address. And I would never include your birth year, okay? Because at some point, you are not going to want people to easily know your age. And I'll tell you, the ageism starts around age 45. It gets a little bit harder in this country to get a job. 50s and 60s, absolutely, it's harder. It depends who you are, what your reputation is. You know, so I'm not saying your career's over once you hit 50, or if you have to find a job at 50, you're sunk. No, but you want to pick an email address that you can have for the next 35 to 40 years. That's how long you're going to be working, maybe. So don't use bright colors, wild designs, weird fonts. That is not the way to make yourself stand out. You're going to look like you just came here from Mars. Okay, this is a more conservative document. And so you don't want to do anything too wild. Real quick about references, you want to choose wisely. And you want to, so you want somebody who speaks well on the phone, sends timely emails, not somebody who will take a week to get back to an employer. That is not good at all. And alert the people in advance that they might be getting a call or an email. Make sure they are reachable, that there's not a crisis going on in their life right now. You know, maybe they really were the best person to put on your reference list, but not right now. And if you haven't been in contact with them recently, I would choose somebody else. It's very awkward to be asked to be a reference for me, for a student who I haven't had them in class for 2 years. I barely remember them. They have not kept in touch with me. Sorry. Yeah, maybe they were great in class, but I can't really say that much about them because I don't remember. So keep in touch with your favorite professors. But you don't want to put at the end of bottom of your resume references provided upon request, because hey, if you want that internship or job, you're going to have to cough up those references. You're just wasting space. So, and that's kind of old school. So just get rid of that phrase at the bottom. You could consider having your references on a separate sheet along with your resume. But sometimes when you're applying for an internship, they might ask for references, they might not, but I wanted to give you at least a little bit of information, a few pointers about references. So moving on now to resumes. Any questions right now? I've still got a lot to go, so I'm gonna keep going here.
I have a question actually. I know
Yes.
that you might actually just be like starting to talk about this, but do you know if employers actually are I guess more like focused on journalism resumes or like a regular resume? Like
Well,
a regular resume saying like, let's say like I worked at Starbucks and
okay, I see what you mean.
yeah.
Eventually, you want to get to the point where you have a strong resume with where every single thing on that resume is journalism related. But if you're just in 315 right now, yeah, you can put KCSN, as you should, as journalism experience or broadcast experience. But if that's all you have, then yeah, if you worked at Starbucks, you worked at a restaurant, retail, go ahead and put it there. But I personally would not put more than 2 non-journalism jobs on a resume ever, even if you worked more than that. You may say, well, then I'm going to have gaps in my employment. They don't care. If you're still in college. So don't think that you've got to put every single job that you've ever done during college. You don't. Because everything that you put that's not journalism detracts from the journalism stuff. But it's good to show, hey, I've held a job for a year. I worked the last year at Target. Obviously, you know something about customer relations and showing up for a job on time. And if you haven't worked any other jobs, that's okay too. Oops, let me go back. Oh, so hopefully that answered your question.
Professor Bluestein, I have one question.
Yeah.
How do you feel about including a photo in the corner of your resume if it's like a really nice headshot?
You could. And I'll read Professor Stokes' comment in a minute. It's up to you. That used to be a complete no-no, like 15, 20 years ago, because you didn't want to be discriminated against. And so you may not really want to be as upfront about your ethnicity because you would want to be judged on who you are based on your resume. But now with LinkedIn, it has the profile photo, social media, everybody can see what you look like. So it's okay, but it's got to be a good photo. I think it's not necessary, but maybe for broadcast it is. If you want to be on air, then perhaps it would be appropriate to do that. Professor Stokes said it's all about order, put journalism reference on the top and emphasize it. Yes, absolutely. Create a separate section lower down for non-journalism employment. Perfect. Absolutely. And in fact, as far as order goes, from what I understand, as long as you're still in college, education should be the very top thing. And then you go to journalism experience, and then other work experience is kind of a nice way to word it. Then you know, you might have skills and relevant coursework. That's a good one too, especially if you don't have a whole lot, if you're just in 210 now or even 315 now. But yeah, so definitely, Jesse, you should replace journalism with PR. Absolutely. And so real quick, we're just looking at the layout. Don't worry about what the content says, but there's traditional versus modern resumes. And you can just take a quick glance at this and see the difference. The traditional is you just go from section to section, working your way down. It's the complete width of the resume, but the more modern resumes are much more modular. So here's, you know, experience, education. This person has graduated, so they moved education down. They've got some awards and conferences and hard skills and soft skills, personal info. My suggestion to you would be that if you don't have a modern resume yet, you really should. You should go ahead and make the change. They're here to stay. The traditional is fine for now. If you're applying tomorrow for a summer internship, don't stay up all night long converting it to a modern resume. The content is always the most important, absolutely. But at some point, go ahead and make that change to the modern resume. So here's the traditional, a little bit more close up, and may have the professional summary. I don't think you need the professional summary at the top until you've been working a few years full time. but you can see the name centered at the top and all the information. And then there's the modern, woohoo. So a whole lot different. This is not a journalism person, but you can at least see how it's kind of compartmentalized more. And it's just a lot more graphically pleasing. Juliana says, I have read in some places that companies won't hire you because they don't like resumes that are too much. So yeah, it does depend on the company. I think a resume like this, I think is fine. If you got crazy colors going on, fonts, no, that's too much. If you're really not sure, then go with the traditional. You can't go wrong with that at all. This is a journalism resume. It's a little old and it's just a sample. This isn't, I don't even know if this is a real person. But I want to call your attention to how she has the title and the company name, the location, and then a description, very brief, what she did at each of her journalism experience jobs. So here she, this was a news service. She was an intern, a freelance writer, and then a reporter for her college newspaper. I like how she buried the dates, because to me, the dates, you know, if you're doing an internship for 3-4 months, it's not important to have it way out in this, you know, on its own in a certain, you know, in its own column. I like how she buried it. One thing as far as wording is that if you are currently at the job or doing whatever it is, Agency 398, KCSN, Valley View News, then all of the verbs will be in present tense. Once you leave that position, then you need to switch it. Oops, sorry, let me go back. You need to switch it to past tense. So she covered education, wrote features, and here cover, or could be covers, because she's been there since September 2006. So she's there presently. Other work experience, there you go. A tour guide on a guide on a tour bus, and then awards and affiliations. You can see very briefly, she just won first place feature, this journalism award when. She's not mentioning the story and how wonderful it was and who she interviewed, just real quick, real quick. Member of SPJ, University of Maryland chapter, event coordinator, period. So look how concise this is. And that's why I like the content of this resume a lot. And that she won a scholarship. And here's just one other little twist on this is the skills. You've got to have skills nowadays. We need to have skills, but you need to have a skills category. And you can qualify it if you want. You can just do bullet points, or you can say that you are proficient in something, you're familiar with something, just to be totally honest. By the way, with languages, if you say you are fluent, that means you can read, write, and speak that language. They are counting on you to be able to do that, perhaps, at that internship. If you can only talk, if you can only pick up the phone, carry on a conversation, do an interview in another language, the wording you want to use is fluent in conversational Spanish or Arabic, whatever it may be. So it's totally cool if all you can do is talk. That's really probably the most valuable skill of all when it comes to languages, but call it conversational. You're still fluent in conversational. Juliana said, if you have no journalism or PR experience to put in your resume right now, can you put that you are a student and includes PR student classes? Yes, so you would have a category of relevant coursework, and then you could include journalism 110, 210, and whatever other journalism classes that you want to include. Hang on, let me get to Savannah in just a second. So Google Docs, Professor Stokes says, has several standard template resumes. Yep, some are more conservative than others. Excellent. Thanks for bringing that up. So you do not need to know InDesign. You don't need to pay your cousin to design some really cool resume. You can definitely use a template. Savannah, you had a question?
Hi, yeah. I've been driving from a story, so I wasn't able to ask this earlier.
Oh, sure.
But when it comes to the resume, I've put like all of my school experience for journalism on there, but I'm also volunteering with the public information officer at CAL FIRE, and now I'm a staff writer at the SCB Proclaimer. So should that be stuff that I add, even though it's not specifically broadcast work?
Yeah, absolutely. I would probably call it just, I would put journalism. Well, the PIO is technically not journalism. You could say media experience. I don't know. Professor Stokes, do you have an idea? If she's got, so you've got a mix between broadcast, writing, and the volunteer PIO job, right?
Yeah, it's a pretty big mix of all three.
Yeah, media experience.
I think media experience is good. I wouldn't de-emphasize it. I would emphasize even the PIO stuff is in the mix of journalism, especially if you're applying for your first job or an internship. I would emphasize that.
Yeah, because it's still valuable because you're working with reporters. It's all valuable, even if you don't plan to go into PR. That's great. Yeah, Sophia said, make sure you put their titles. Personally, I would put, I wouldn't even put the numbers. I would put beginning news writing for 110. I would put public affairs reporting for 210. And then I would put broadcast writing for 315, PR writing for 341. And introduction to public relations. I would put the name, but a very generic name, because our official name for 110 is News Reporting and Writing and Ethics 1. So I don't know. It's up to you. You can put the official name if you don't feel comfortable, but it is beginning news writing. That's what it is. And that's what an employer is. They're going to want to know, how far along on the journalism course list are you? I'm guessing, yeah, the higher level classes, right. So once you get into the 300 and 400 level classes, I don't think you need to you don't need to refer to 110 and 210 anymore, because remember the clutter, you don't want clutter. But when you're first starting out, if you're just in 210 now, then you're going to want to mention 210. Cover letters real quickly. One page only. It can just be 2 or 3 paragraphs. Please do not turn your resume into a narrative. They have your resume in front of you. You don't need to say, hello, I've been at CSUN since this year and I'm a senior now. We kind of know that. And so I'm being a little flip here, but don't waste any words on the cover letter. Focus on why they should look at your resume. That's where you're going to talk about your hard skills, that you're a fantastic writer and you're really good on deadline, but also your soft skills, that you are a good communicator, you're a good team player. That's the kind of stuff that doesn't come out on resumes. It's not quite as obvious. Talk about your passion. Why are you passionate about journalism? Why do you want to intern for their company? You got to be careful with cover letters. I am very much against using the same cover letter for every company. I think if you really want that job, you're going to write it, or at least parts of it, from scratch. Because you're going to talk about how you have been into Disney things since you were 3 years old when you are applying to an internship at Disney, for example. And also, if you just kind of change the name and the day at the top, you can end up sending the wrong cover letter to, and that's bad. Andre said, oh, so hard and soft skills. So a hard skill, thanks for asking, is a technical skill. That would include writing, editing, capturing video and audio, taking photos. Those are all hard skills. Excel is a hard skill in design. Soft skills are communication related. So public speaking, you all are probably not too well versed because of your age, sorry, in conflict resolution, but that would be a soft skill. But teamwork is a good one. Time management, that's an excellent one for a soft skill. But don't lie, if you're really not that good at time management, work on it so you can say you are someday. Yeah, so Professor Stokes, yeah, add your 2 cents, please.
Well, everything you said has been excellent. I just wanted to add on top of that, I was told specifically, like, I think you hear 2 different things about cover letters. It's like some people are like, oh, they'll never read that, so don't pay any attention to it, don't spend any time. I was told by my boss who hired me that she specifically reads cover letters when she's hiring people, and that she makes sure that a well-written cover letter is, you know, like, she's not going to call someone for a first round interview unless it's a well-written cover letter. So you have to like hedge against those people. Those people definitely exist. So the people also exist who are never going to read it, and they're just going to look at your tape, or they're going to look at your resume and see, do you check the boxes on your resume? But you have to hedge against both. Don't like take it for granted. So, and just to reaffirm with the person who hired me that was the thing that mattered to her. Another good tip I've always heard along the lines of the personalize it. A thing that I've always heard is a good, I think I heard this advice. I think it's probably like useful, especially because you're applying for reporting jobs. If you can, try and figure out who it is that you're writing the cover letter to. Don't write it to whom it may concern if you can avoid it. And even if you have to, like, call someone at the station and be like, or at the newspaper or wherever that you're applying, and say, who's going to be reading my application? Who's the hiring manager on that? Who's going to be making the decision? And then you address it to that person. It can an easy way to personalize something without changing much of the substance down low. And it also indicates, oh, this person knows how to get inside an institution, get inside a closed system, which is something you're supposed to do as a reporter.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, wonderful advice. Absolutely. Yeah. So get on the phone and call usually during regular business hours. They're not going to think you're weird. Just say that you're applying for an internship or a job, and you just want to know who will be reading my letter. And Sophia said
sorry, to kind of like add on that as well, like what Kyle was saying. Julia Cipher actually personally read my cover letter, and she said that she wanted to pick me because of my cover letter. Wow. And the fact that I applied for the same position 2 years in a row. That it was.
Oh, yeah. I remember you saying that before. Yeah. So if you don't get an internship and you're still working on your degree, apply again. I have seen it over and over. Students in my 210 class often don't get internships. It's just too early, because you're competing against students who are already in the 300 and 400 level classes. So, but don't get discouraged. It's still a good thing to go through the motions and then apply again. It doesn't mean that they don't want you at all. It just may be that you're just a little bit too early. It's like, you know, you're baking a cake, you take it out halfway through, it's not ready yet. Okay. So try again. Sophia said why that company would be amazing to work for personally. Yes, absolutely. And then Jesse said, yeah, every word counts. We are communicators in journalism. We are writers. You better prove you can write. You're way out of a paper bag on that cover letter, okay? We are not mathematicians who typically, you know, no offense, their writing skills are often not as strong. So the cover letter is your chance to show that you can write. And also you said another tip. What was the other tip you were talking about, Jesse?
Well, Kyle spilled out like a lot of stuff. I forgot what he was talking about at that point. Hopefully we can see it on our website when we recap it. But like, yeah, there was just something he said, and it just great. Now I can't remember it. I'm definitely gonna have to.
I said two things. I said, don't take it for granted, and to find out who the person is, that the hiring manager.
Yeah, that part's huge. Like I've heard a lot of people just like, yeah, I researched it, and I reach out to them, and they love seeing their name on the paper.
Oh, people love their name. And
Yeah.
on the that topic, make sure you have spelled their name correct. Some names can be used by a man or a woman. If you aren't sure if they would go by Mr. or Ms., or perhaps they don't identify as a man or a woman, just put Dear John Smith, just first and last name. You can't go wrong with that. But make sure you know who you are writing to. Look them up on LinkedIn and see if you can, and make sure you're looking at the right person on LinkedIn. But you've got to nail the spelling of their name. That could be enough to kick you out of contention, even if you truly were the most qualified for that internship. It's sad, it's cutthroat, but you got to proofread, because if you're sloppy on that cover letter or that resume, and you've had weeks and months to work on this, what are you going to do on deadline? You're going to crash and burn as far as they think. You're not being real impressive by having a obvious typo in a cover letter or resume. So be a little paranoid about it. You've got to be perfect on that. So on to internships. These are just some of the benefits of internships: is establishing connections, getting to know people who are working right now in the industry and learning how the industry operates, seeing what you like and you dislike. It is really a great idea. You don't have to do this, but it is a great idea to have a variety of internships at different companies. There was a student, I love to tell his story, Nick Popham, who is now an on-air reporter in Seattle. So he's done quite well. He graduated about 4 or 5 years ago from CSUN. He was sure he wanted to be a sports reporter, and he ended up having a sports internship while he was still in college, and he decided, no, I don't really want to only do sports. Then he ended up having an internship at 60 Minutes in New York over the summer, and said, no, I don't want to just do sports. But if he had not had that internship, he would have gone in there trying to get that sports job and might not have been too happy. And you want to stay at any full-time job after college for at least a year. If you move around too much, that's a red flag to employers. So you got to be happy with that job, because you really kind of need to stay there for at least a year. And obtaining that real world experience, it's just not the same, as some of you already know who've done internships. And those of you who are thinking about doing internships, it's not the same writing for doing a story for one of your classes, even student media. It's not quite the same as having that professional experience. Building your portfolio. All of you should have an online portfolio at this point, or be working toward having one. That's going to be a must. to show your experience, and it's going to distinguish you from the students who only have a BA. If this is your last semester at CSUN, you've never had an internship, then do what you can to get experience. Start writing a blog. You don't need anybody's permission at all to publish your own blog. Just make sure that it is, AP style and grammar and spelling and all that stuff. So real quick, and this is what I'm going to go through in detail next week when I do my How to Find That Oh So Important Internship workshop, is my 7 strategies. Oops, here we go. Sorry. For finding an internship is, first, think of that media or PR company and where you would like to intern, and look at its website. If you're not finding any information about internships, call them up and ask. Maybe they just haven't updated their website. Monday Memo is your BFF in our department. You are emailed that every Monday, usually every Monday afternoon, and it is chock full of internship and job opportunities. So check that out. Take a few minutes to read through it. We have a student who spends hours and hours compiling that every single week. Do a Google search, journalism internship Los Angeles, and see what you find. But be leery of anything that that's on Craigslist. NBC4 doesn't put stuff on Craigslist. Okay, so so Jesse said you found that companies definitely respond to their social media tags and messages. Yeah, absolutely. You can definitely DM people, and that you tagged the Calm app the other night and you got them to respond to you. Wow, on Instagram. Awesome. And yeah, Angela Vega is the Monday Memo student. You can search for a specific internship site. And that's what I'm going to go through at my workshop next week. Interact with people on LinkedIn. Start getting connections. You've got to have at least 30 connections for LinkedIn to even do anything for you. So start connecting with professors, with students, and you can even connect with professional journalists as well. Oops, sorry, my mouse is very sensitive. Ask your classmates, especially those who've already done an internship. You're not any threat to them. They've already had that internship. Ask them, how did you get it? And what advice do you have for me? And then ask your journalism professors also for suggestions. Awesome. So I want to tell you just briefly about my journalism 494 class, trying to move something out of the way here. This is an elective class. As I mentioned at the very beginning, we do not require you to get an internship in order to complete your journalism degree at CSUN, nor do we require you to take this class. But we hope that you do get an internship, and we hope you take this class. It's 3 units of the 12 upper division journalism elective units that you need. So that's always a good thing. You can only take it once. I'll talk about your options if you get more than one internship. So here's the steps. Contact me, first of all, if you have any questions, if you get offered an internship, if you just are looking for an internship for fall, for example, contact me and we can get you into the class in May and June, and then get an internship and then complete the paperwork. And it is a real class. It's not just paperwork. You have a weekly assignment and we have a monthly class session as well. So an internship is not required. Yeah, it's not required for anybody in our program, whether you are broadcast, PR, whatever you are, it is not required. Yeah, and you may have friends at other schools where it is required, and that's true, but not at CSUN. So here's the prereqs, and we are very strict about this. And the reason why is we want you to be successful at your internship. If you're just in 210 right now, you're really probably not ready for a lot of internships. And that's probably why employers aren't going to take a second look at you quite yet. So for broadcast internships, it's $315. You guys can read all of them, but $310 if you're going to do a magazine or print internship, digital. So maybe you are applying for a digital internship at NBC4, writing for their website. Contact me. I mean, if you've had $315, that's fine. You don't have to do $310. $350 for for photo. Hold on, let me move this out of the way. For a photo internship, there aren't too many of those these days, unfortunately. And public relations internship is $341 with a solid C or better. You're representing yourself at this internship, but you're also representing our program. And we want you to be successful for you, but we want you to be successful for our program as well. We don't want students having a bad experience at an internship because they were unprepared, because that reflects badly on you and also on us. If you haven't met the prereq, you've got a couple different options. Or if it ends up you take my class and you still have 1 or 2 semesters left at CSUN, so either before or after taking 494, there is an online course. It will cost you $200. That's the bad news, but the good news is it's super easy. It's offered through the CSU system, and it's the Entertainment Industry Initiative, or actually Alliance. The word Entertainment Alliance is in there. You can always email me and I can send you the link. And they offer it spring, summer, and fall. And only 100 hours minimum. There's very little work to it. And that 3 units will count as 3 units toward your 72 units you need outside of journalism. So that's kind of cool. Or you could take a community college class, which is going to be about $200 by the time you're done with a 3-unit class. They often call them co-op ed, like cooperative education. So they may not call it internship. I want to point this out. If you are doing an unpaid internship, you must be getting college credit. Easy way to remember this. You need to get either cash or credit. You need to get paid, or you need to be getting college credit. Otherwise, it is illegal in the eyes of the federal government. So any internship that would allow you to do an unpaid internship and not require you to be getting college credit, I would really reconsider applying there. And then options for summer, the same 2 options. You have the CSU entertainment online course, the community college, or Comm Studies 494. We don't offer journalism 494 in the summer anymore because we never got enough students to sign up. Comms was having trouble getting enough students to sign up. So we got together a few years ago, and we now allow our journalism students to take that class. You still have to be cleared through me and meet our prereqs and our standards. But it's going to cost you a lot more money. But we do count Comms 494 the same as Journalism 494. But that also means you can't take Journalism 494 if you've done comms. Only a handful of students do that every summer in journalism, but I just want to tell you about that. And I believe this is my last slide. If you want to learn more, I'm going to be doing a workshop next week. I will offer it at both of these times, 3 o'clock on Wednesday the 10th and 5 o'clock on Thursday the 11th. On how to find an internship, and we'll go through a lot more detail about finding an internship. And the Mike Curb College is having an internship fair. This is virtual on Friday the 25th from 3 to 6. There will be more information about that in Monday memo coming up, but put that on your calendar and you'll have a chance. And you don't have to be there for 3 hours. You can just show up and go to a breakout room for a particular employer at a specific time. And then that's, so you may only want to visit 1 or 2 employers. You don't have, it's not a 3-hour commitment, but it's going to be happening over that 3 hours. So any other questions? I thought that was my last one. I know we went over, this always happens. We could talk for hours about these topics.
I have a question.
Yeah, Andy.
Bluestein. Yeah, so if we want to put our skill set as like, I'm well versed in various Adobe applications, should I just put Adobe Suites or should I list all the Adobe applications that I'm well versed in?
Depends on how much room you have on your resume and if they want to know that you can, like Adobe Premiere, you mean?
Yeah, like Adobe Premiere, Rush, Photoshop, and like all these other like other applications.
It's a tough thing.
I think you just edit it right there. All those other ones, you don't have to list them. The ones that are relevant, list them. If they're not, will the job need you to know InDesign?
Yeah.
TV job, no. A design job, yes.
Good point. Yeah. So maybe list the ones that are relevant to that job instead of just saying Adobe Suite, because that they might not know exactly what you know in Adobe Suite. Other questions?
I did see that you said the internship career workshop was on, I think it said March 25th, Friday, March 25th, right?
Yes.
It looks like the 25th is a Thursday. Would that be the 26th then?
Hang on just a second. Ooh, you are right. I think I typed that wrong. Let me check real quick, on my email. Here it is. That may be a GFE for me, for all of my students who are here. Real quick, let me double check, because I'm working with a CTVA student who is helping to do in his part. Here we go. It is the 26th. Yes, so it's Friday, March 26th, 3 to 6. Yeah,
okay,
thank you. Good catch.
I just wanted to make sure. So anybody who you guys wanted, I would highly suggest going to that because that would be super awesome. And definitely the employers would probably want to hire you more just because you would be more personalized and you'd actually had spoken to them, not obviously in person, but you had spoken to them and they'd probably remember your name or your face more when you apply for a position at their job. So everybody, I would highly suggest going to that. I'm sure you said it would be in the Monday memo, correct?
Yeah, there'll be more about that. I think I'll send something to Angela just to get it in the next Monday memo so that people will be aware of it before they go on spring break. And then more details will be in Monday memo as it gets probably for that particular week.
Yeah.
Also want to put in the chat, we haven't figured out dates yet for speed mentoring for journalism and career day. I'm doing speed mentoring. Professor Davis is doing career day. I'm pretty sure at this point we're talking April. Definitely won't be May. That's just too late. And I think that's also going to be after spring break. So probably April, maybe late March. But keep your eyes out for that, those two events. Speed mentoring, we did it in the fall and it was really popular. Some of you may have gone to it. We had 10 different broadcasters in different breakout rooms and it worked out really well. We did it in the evening and I'm pretty sure we may do it in the evening again. or like 5 to 7 or something like that, you know, not super late, but it's hard to get working people to break away from their day to do something like that, to give advice to students. So I think we'll probably be doing it in the evening. And then the career day, typically we have a couple different panel discussions. So that could be really good. Oh, so we did, yeah. And that's something to keep in mind. We need to not, Professor Davis and I need to not schedule those 2 events during any of the club regular meeting times.
Well, ours is now Tuesdays, so you can pick Thursdays like you want.
Okay. Yeah, and in the PR club, I'll look into all that, but that's something to keep in mind, or at least if we have to do it that day, we'll adjust the time so that students can attend. Any other questions?
Also, if you guys don't have any questions right now, you are also able to email Professor Bluestein too. She is very responsive with her emails. Usually she gets back to me within 24 hours or less than that. Awesome. Thank you for putting that.
Yeah. Please reach out to me. I want all of you to do at least one internship, if not more. I know that it is intimidating. Some of you may be going into an industry that no one else in your family has been in. And so you don't always have a lot of help from people who you know. So that's why I'm here. That's why you're professors, Professor Stokes. Awesome that you're here as well. And I'm happy, and I won't give you a quick turnaround on this, but I am happy to look at resumes. It depends, you know, maybe during spring break should be a little bit lighter time for me. If you are applying to an internship, at least send it to me a few days in advance and tell me that, okay, this is the deadline. I'd really like you to look over my resume. I have never found a student resume that I didn't have something to suggest. So, and sometimes I've found journalism misspelled. So you never want to do that. So it's always good to have somebody else look it over. And you may disagree with some of my suggestions, but always nice to get some feedback. Yeah, so send me my resume when you're applying for MMJ jobs. Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. That would be great.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is great because, you know, I want to plant seeds with you all, because I really want you all to have some internships. It made the biggest difference in my career. It was just amazing. And I had those internships on my resume for definitely my first or second full-time journalism job, and eventually they dropped away. But so it's and I love teaching that class. Just FYI, I will be on sabbatical. Yay! One year from now, spring of 21. Somebody else will be doing the internship class. It will not be me, and I will not be replying to emails. I'm working on a big project that semester. So hit me up before December. So thanks again. I'll go ahead and take off.